Redditors who work in retail. What's the saddest thing someone ever returned? Story 1. Not me, but something I read a few months ago. I take care of the orchids in a floral store, and had a young woman come in, maybe in her early 20s. She was very sweet, attentive, and wanted to know about everything we had, but eventually settled on an orchid. She was very excited about moving into a new home and had me help her find a flower that would brighten up the place. She listened very closely to the directions I gave her for caring for a new plant. It was a gorgeous plum in white blossom and very hardy, and even had me write them down for her. I used store stationery and even wrote my name on the card and told her to come see me if she had any questions at all. About a month and a half later, an older man comes in with the orchid, possibly her father. He'd seen my name and the name of our store on the card and brought it back to us. The young woman had passed away in an accident shortly after moving, and he didn't know how to care for the plant. It was in great shape. I could tell she'd been taking care of it, but he didn't want anything to do with it. He asked me to refund it and put it back on the shelves, as even with the directions he wasn't sure he could take care of it, and even if he could, he didn't want it around. I think it reminded him of her too much. I have a small amount of oversight in the department, so I managed to trade him the orchids for a funeral bouquet that was worth a lot more. I was supposed to put the orchid back on display, but I couldn't bear to. I got permission to bring it home with me, but even with all the care I gave it, it passed a couple of weeks later. I don't know if flowers can miss people, but part of me likes to think this one did. I think I should go hug some plants now. Story 2. I worked in an upscale department store, selling handbags. Most of ours started at $200 plus. An early 20s woman and her mom, probably mid-50s, come in together. The young woman pulls me aside and tells me her mom sacrificed everything to raise her alone, working 2 jobs to put her through the local prep school rather than public school, and then to put her through college so the daughter could focus on her studies. Now, my daughter had graduated and recently landed a great job, and had come to visit mom and take her out for the day. She wanted to buy mom a beautiful purse to take to church, as mom had denied herself anything nice for so long because she'd given everything for the daughter. That mom was so reluctant to let her daughter buy her anything, but finally caved in and they chose a classically styled bag for about $250. Nice construction, well suited to her style and the kind of thing that always looks good. I wrapped it up in tissue in a box and packed it carefully in a shopping bag. A few days later, the mom came back with a bag, and inside was the purse still wrapped just as I had done it. She felt so guilty accepting the gift from her daughter and told me to just credit the daughter's account. I processed the return, but wish she could have understood the sheer happiness and joy I'd seen on her daughter's face when she had made the purchase, when she could finally start to repay her mom for her sacrifices. Story 3. Nobody will see this, but I'm on the other side of the coin here. Last fall, my dad decided to finally get his hearing checked and assessed for hearing aids. He really needed them. He wanted to be able to hear his first grandbaby, my daughter, coo and babble when she was born in January. Unfortunately, the ones that worked best for him were outside of the budget he and my mom could afford. My husband and I decided Santa would gift them to him. He cried. His new ears gave him a new lease on life. He was happy, chatty, and interactive during family get-togethers because he could actually hear everyone else enough to participate. Fast forward to January and he's the happiest, most doting of grandpas. He was the first person to hold her, after my husband. Dad started feeling sick in February. He passed away on April 12, 2016. The baby was just 10 weeks old. My mom has been largely unable to handle things in the wake of his passing. Among all of the other things that I've handled for my family, because it's just too hard on everyone else, Mom asked if I would do something with his ears. I ended up calling the hearing aid shop and asking if they knew of any donation program or someone could benefit from the use of his ears. We actually ended up donating them to an elderly woman who was having difficulty communicating with her family and couldn't afford new ears of her own. Dad would have liked that. I like to think she can hear her grandbabies giggle and laugh now. I've declined the opportunity to meet her. I don't think my heart could take it. Not yet, anyway. Story 4. Returned her husband's replacement razors. I asked her if he was unsatisfied and maybe wanted another kind or style. Nope. He passed away earlier before his birthday to receive them. She started crying and I just leaned over the counter to console her. A little more background if interested. I was a lead at a certain store advertising a Wild Beyond section, so as stated below, I told her I'd lost my best friend nearly a decade ago, and to this day, the tiniest memory or smell can bring up moments that make me emotional so as not to feel embarrassed over a pack of razors. Then using my position of trust, I coupon the crap out of her purchase and talked with her for a while. It's rare in retail, but there are those moments where, despite the noise around you and the mounting lines, you have to be a human and just listen about someone's day. So she and I chatted for a while and I never saw her again. Someone better give this guy Employee of the Year. Psst. Let's be honest. Does your room look dull as Yeah, well, most do. Luckily, I just launched Rufus Rugs. Custom, hand-tufted rugs. And no, this isn't some BS dropshipping company. We have a warehouse in Canada where me and my friends hand-tuft every single rug. So if you're looking to bring your room to life with some awesome anime rugs, or literally anything you can think of, we can get it done for you. From Rick and Morty to The Last Airbender, we've got you covered. Hit the link in the description to get a free quote. Story 5. I worked for a relatively sizable retail chain that operates primarily in the Southeast USA. Our primary demographic is women 40 to 65. but we have a pretty extensive men's section with some pricey stuff. Calvin Klein, Michael Kors, stuff like that. I'm a 20-year-old trendy-ish dude, and at least 75% of my shirts and pants come from that place, so it caters to all sorts. Anyway, I had a woman come in one afternoon and was very snippy to both me and the manager working that day. She plopped about $80 worth of men's clothing on the counter and asked me to return it and give her the cash back. No problem, she had the receipts and everything. She rather rudely asked me where the large men's shirts and pants were, and when I told her I was unfamiliar with the exact layout of the men's department, as I was a cashier and almost never left the front, she rolled her eyes and muttered something under her breath, and proceeded to accost my manager for their location. When she came back up to the front, I tried to be as jovial as I could, and asked her if she was buying for her husband. She responded that no, she was buying for her son. Apparently, he was almost 30 years old, still lived at home, had no job, and had recently outgrown his XXL pants and underwear, and she needed to find some XXX. She mentioned that he didn't really leave the house much and relied on her to do his shopping because he had attempted to end it all a few months previously, and since then had become even more of a recluse than he had before. She got misty-eyed and stopped talking rather abruptly. I normally hate being the guy who brings up his mental illnesses in public, it just makes everyone involved uncomfortable. I avoid the topic like the plague unless it's with my partner or a very close friend. But I felt like she needed to hear some words of reassurance. I told her that 2 years previously I was in a place just like her son, that I was a shut-in with no ambition, had pretty crippling depression, and struggled a lot. I also mentioned that I had attempted what he tried a year or two previously. Her hand was on the counter, so I lightly touched it and just said, "If I could get from where I was then to where I am now, your son is going to be just fine." She started to lose it at that. I gave her a 20% discount on all of the stuff she was buying and she left. I never saw her come into the store after that. I still think about her a lot. I really, really hope her son's doing better. Story 6. I used to be a manager for a Disney store. We had a regular old man come in with his wife regularly. Super cute couple. I mean, matching outfits, holding hands, just cute as could be. We used to sell these huge stuffed animals, like ginormous. The couple came in about once a week and would just walk around, laugh and smile, buy things here and there. One night he came in on his own and bought one of these gigantic Mickeys we had. It was $300, I think. He was so excited. He told us all about how he was going to take her out to dinner and it would be sitting there on the bed to surprise her when they got home. Anyway, 2 days later, he walked back in, carrying the gigantic Mickey Mouse plush to return it. He had bought it to surprise her for her 75th birthday. She passed away in her sleep the day before her birthday. He thanked us and said goodbye and that he would not be coming back because our store reminded him too much of his wife. We found out he passed away a week later. It was just 7 days from the day his wife passed. We found out all of the details because one of our employees went to the same church. Story 7. I was working at a large pet store in the tropical fish department. One busy weekend, a very well-dressed, rather snobby woman came in and bought 6 baby angelfish, each about the size of a dime, plus the fins. The store I worked in was inside a huge high-end shopping mall, so we had a holding service where we would bag up fish, cash the customer out, and float the fish in their bags in a warm tank until the customer was finished all their shopping and ready to leave for home. As a matter of course, I offered to hold this lady's baby angelfish. She said she was all good and left. We thought nothing of it, since many of our customers came in from outside the mall just to stop at the pet store and didn't bother visiting the rest of the mall. 4 or 5 hours later, she stormed back into the store demanding a manager and a refund. She was shaking the bag in our faces for emphasis, yelling that our gorgeous angels were all dead. In close inspection, we discovered that the silly idiot had put the poor fish in her car, presumably so she didn't need to carry them while she shopped for other things or returned to the store to pick them up. Unfortunately, because it was January and the temperature outside was about negative 15 degrees Celsius, the tiny babies had frozen to their end. She simply couldn't wrap her head around the idea that tropical fish cannot withstand freezing temperatures. Even when we took a tiny fish out of the bag and showed her that not only had ice formed on top of the once 84 degrees Fahrenheit water, but the dime-sized fish was actually frozen stiff. Some people just shouldn't have pets. I've never hoped for someone to get declined a refund so badly than now. If you don't want to end up like her pets, leave a like in this video and subscribe to the channel. Story 8. I'm not really sure if this counts, but I worked for a chain sporting goods store for a few years. One day, this woman comes up to the register with some soccer stuff for her daughter. She's shaking and frantically trying to dial someone on the phone. We had a quota to sign people up for a point card, and we would be punished for not meeting a certain percentage of sales with signups. Well, this lady didn't have a card, so I'm asking her all the normal questions, and she's answering me. The system failed, and all the info she gave me was lost. I feel bad because I can tell she just wants to get out of the store, and I need to go through all it again to be able to sign her up. She finally gets through on her phone call, and as it turns out, her mom just had a heart attack or something and it wasn't good. She's trying to hold it together in front of her kid, but I can tell that she wasn't in a good place. So I say screw it, bring her out as fast as I can, and she bolts out the door. Figured the potential write-up was worth it because she needed to be somewhere a hell of more important than my register. Story 9. They didn't actually return anything, we offered to return something. I work at a pet store and we do dog training. This guy got a pit bull and signed him up for one of our training packages that includes adult level 1, adult level 2, and a good citizen test. He finished the adult 1 and everything was great. He registered for his level 2 class and then when the day came, didn't show up. This was out of character for him, but the trainer gave him the benefit of the doubt. And since he was the only dog in the class, he didn't think much of it. 21-year-old kid was the victim of a crime early that morning while his dog was around. We found out from an online news thing. The girlfriend figured something was weird when he didn't meet up with her after his training class time was over. Even though it was past the return time and he bought a package, we offered to return the unused class to the family. The girlfriend didn't want to because the owner would have wanted the dog to be trained, especially being a pit bull. Story 10. Not retail, but worked at a car dealership. Had a newlywed couple come in wanting to buy a new vehicle, but didn't want to discuss the option of trading in his current premium model car. The longer they were at the dealership, the more worried his wife seemed to be. Finally, while discussing the final finance paperwork, a tow truck pulled into the dealership and repossessed their vehicle. The finance company had just not reported their lack of payment to the credit bureaus yet. The wife then went into full mental breakdown mode and started putting him on blast in front of everyone who would listen. Evidently, he lost his job a couple of weeks before the marriage and didn't tell her. He also didn't tell her until earlier that week that he had stopped paying the bills. So she learned her husband hadn't had a job for the past 4 months, the bank already sold their house out from under them, and both of their cars were now repossessed all in 1 week. She also mentioned that the down payment check wouldn't have gone through anyway because they only had $50 in their name. Oh, and she was 3 months pregnant. Story 11. Not sad, but I worked in a cafe and takeaway in a beautiful beach in South Devon, UK. One day I could hear a group of men and women verbally going at a rather shy and timid girl who worked with us. I left the kitchen to ask if everything was okay and sent her back inside. The problem, which apparently required 4 grown adults to shout and swear at an 18-year-old girl, was that all 4 of them had bought burgers and fries, and all 4 of them didn't wish to have any ketchup in their buns. The menus clearly signposted what comes with the burgers, and that will do them without ketchup or whatever if you ask. These 4 had actually eaten more than half of their food already, including the ketchup, and were aggressively demanding not only new burgers, which if they'd been nice about we probably would have done for them, but also new fries each because all of them had put their fries in the burgers and got ketchup on them, and new drinks because by the time their new food came, they would have finished them. And to top it off, asking for their money back too. Our ketchup had ruined their day, and who did we think we were querying why they were asking for their money back and food for free? I took their remaining food and binned it, gave them their money back, and suggested we couldn't provide them the level of service they wanted, so we would not be selling them anything for the remainder of the day. Story 12. I worked at a clothing store that was popular with teens. A spoiled tween came to the register, accompanied by her mom, and laid out easily $500 worth of clothing. Probably around 20-plus tops, 5 pairs of jeans, a jacket, shorts, sandals, etc. As I'm ringing this absurd amount of items, another girl, I assume their first girl's friend, joins the tween and her mom. As she approaches, I realize the friend must have recently undergone chemo. She was probably a tween as well, completely bald and frail. She approaches the girl and her mom with a single tank top. Friend, is it okay if I get this? Mom, sure, but Susan needs to put back one of her items. Daughter, no way, Mom. Foul words and her mom ensues. Mom decides to purchase about $500 of clothes for the daughter, while the cancer-stricken friend returns the $10 tank top. I continue despondently ringing everything up, hating the world. If they were sisters, I honestly don't even know how to react to how sad that is. Story 13. Not my story, but my supervisor shared a story with me about an old woman who placed a large order to redecorate her and her husband's house. We're a store that mostly sells general home items, but also has a large selection of furniture. She had selected several $1,000s worth of merchandise. A lot of it was special order, so it was being sold non-returnable. The woman ended up passing away shortly after everything was delivered, and the husband couldn't deal with all the new stuff. He wanted to keep all of their old things exactly the way they were, so my supervisor made an exception to have it all returned and refunded. Somewhat similarly, someone created a registry for their upcoming baby. They had a ton of baby stuff picked out. Unfortunately, the husband had later called in to say his wife had miscarried and the baby didn't make it. The wife was okay, but in no condition to talk on the phone, so again, my supervisor allowed everything to be returned, no questions asked. Story 14. I used to manage the warehouse at an electronics store and occasionally sold stuff and did returns and whatnot. A younger guy came in, about 19 or 20, said he just got his first real job and wanted to buy a big screen TV to celebrate his first paycheck. Sold him a good TV, did the normal testing for him, slight discount and warranty and whatnot because I'm cool like that. He was super happy. I packed everything up for him and put it in his hatchback, probably parents' vehicle. A week later, I saw the TV in my warehouse with a return tag on it. I asked around a bit, but nobody really knew until our usual customer service girl came in to start our shift. What I was told was that, after I sold the TV, he was on his way home when a deer jumped out in the front of the car, went through the windshield, and took him out instantly. The TV was undamaged because I had laid it down on the floor in the back, all wrapped up in bubble wrap in the box. His dad came in and returned it. Story 15. A woman late into her pregnancy and her husband came in shopping for some baby stuff. A lot of it at that. I talked to them while checking out. The woman was 7 months pregnant and the father just got a new job. They came back a month later and returned everything. The baby came almost 2 months early and did not survive. I was completely speechless after that and went into one of those this world sucks moods for the rest of the day. This one girl I worked with heard them say that and her eyes immediately began tearing up. She ran to the break room so that the couple wouldn't see her. On the other hand, I've seen a pretty tragic purchase before. Some lady who had been married to her husband for 30 years was getting a divorce at age 50. Her husband was cheating, so she decided to buy over $1,000 worth of clothes and apply for a store credit card just to stick the bill and drop the credit score in her husband's name. Story 16. I work in customer relations for a luxury car dealership. I get basically paid to interact with customers and make them feel more at ease during the buying and servicing of their vehicles. That being said, I get to know and like a lot of our customers. So one day last year, around Halloween, we had a young family come in, looking for an SUV since the wife was pregnant and the husband had gotten a huge promotion. They had a kid already that was around 4, if I remember correctly, and were just actually cool people. I actually spent a lot of time getting to know them through the buying process and was excited to have this family get their dream car. Fast forward to this August and I see their SUV out in the parking lot. When you work at a dealership, you learn your favorite plates and cars, or I'm a freak, both are possible. I asked around and no one in service is working with them. So I asked our sales manager, thinking they were switching to the redesigned model of the SUV. We'd talked about it when they'd bought their car. He gave me an uneasy look and said it was the wife's mom and I should talk to the sales guy. Weird, but okay. I found the sales guy and he's also uneasy, but after a few minutes tells me to go to the back office and he'll fill me in. Apparently, the husband lost his mind a few months prior. She had just had the baby and I suppose that stressed him out. Her mom was called when the toddler went to a neighbor and said his parents were messy and still sleeping. Basically, their mom was there to see if we could buy the vehicle back after getting everything else taken care of, which we did. Of all the things here, this one wins the dubious distinction of being the most super extra messed up. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you made it this far, I'm sure you'll also enjoy what's the most heartbreaking thing you've personally witnessed. Story 5 was sad. See you in that video.